Don't forget YouTube. Hello, everyone. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Vanita Lambert. I am the host of the show, and I have a very special guest on. Her name is Ellen Morgan. She is an attorney. She is my NCNW sister. She is very political. She's head of the political committee in our organization, and I'm sure she's doing a whole bunch of other things. So please welcome Ellen Morgan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
I really appreciate it. I called her up at the last minute and she came. I just called yesterday. So I really do appreciate you, interrupting your busy schedule to be here to share with us some really important information.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of things we want to talk about.
Sure thing.
I would love to talk about the National Council of Negro Women. That's the organization that, we're both on. Mm-hmm. We're having our Founders Day coming up in April, and we want to kind of get the word out there. And because we're powerful in numbers, we are trying to recruit people, and we're trying to get people to just come out and see what we're about, see some of the things that we're doing and how it all came about. And so she's an expert at that. That's why I asked her. I'm a newbie.
Not so much newbie.
So Ellen, why don't you tell us just a little bit about the NCNW?
Okay, so
how it all started and everything.
Okay, so NCNW stands for the National Council of Negro Women, and it was founded in 1935 by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who is one of the most phenomenal women you will ever hear about. A lot of people will shorthand the name, because it is a long name, mm-hmm. to either NCNW or the Council. So when you hear that, that's who you're talking about.
Okay.
So Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, she was the founder of Bethune College, which is now Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona, Florida, in the 20s. She started out, her parents were enslaved. She was first generation free. She started out by selling chicken and fish dinners and cakes and pies to fund a school for girls.
We still do that.
We still do that. And as that grew, mm-hmm. I'm going to say within a decade of that school growing, her husband, Alfred Cookman, had started a school for boys. And eventually they joined the two. And so now it is Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona, Florida. But she was an advisor to the world. She started many organizations, the Association for the Study of African American History, which is how, with Carter G. Woodson, which is how, and he started Black History Week, which turned into Black History Month.
Yes.
She was their first president. She advised Eleanor Roosevelt and the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration for many decades on issues of women and on issues of Black people. She's a member of what they call the famous kitchen cabinet. Eleanor Roosevelt had a handful of people that she used as trusted advisors, mm-hmm. and then she would advise her husband based upon the things that she learned from these people. So they called that the kitchen cabinet because it was all women, mm-hmm. and women belonged in the kitchen back in the 30s.
Oh yeah, some of them still think that, but
yeah. So she became so influential that mm-hmm. she then was picked to be an advisor at the creation of the United Nations, and helped write the original charter for the United Nations in 1945.
Wow.
So she was a phenomenal woman.
Phenomenal
woman.
And Black, and in the 20s?
In the 20s and 30s, when she's doing all this stuff, when so much stuff was going on.
I know.
Fast forward, mm-hmm. she passed in the 1950s. Our section, the Bridgeport section, is one of the last charters she personally signed.
Wow.
So she created NCNW mm-hmm. as an organization of organizations. So we are made up of different women's organizations all under the umbrella of the National Council of Negro Women. Here in Connecticut, we have 5 sections.
Yep.
Bridgeport being the first, followed by New Haven, Hartford, New London County, and our collegiate section, Yukon up at Storrs. So for a small state, we have a lot of sections.
Yes, we do.
And while the national organization has cohorts of things that they want sections to work on, National knew that as an organization of organizations, we're not just going to sit out and say, okay, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You know what is best for your community because the organization was founded to lead and advocate for women of African descent, their families, and their communities. You know what's best in your community.
Yep.
These are the topics. You run with what you think is going to work. So all the states that have sections have a different flavor of what they do under these 4 different things. And so that's how we end up with the National Council of Negro Women. We are in the Caribbean. There are sections in Jamaica, if I'm not mistaken. I think we still have a section in Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and a couple of the other islands. We have a section in Ghana. We have sections in Germany and in France.
That's amazing, and that's one of the reasons I am so proud to be a part of this organization because it is just so much bigger than me and you. And, you know, it's all of us, and we're powerful in numbers. And we have that national convention, you know, biannually down in D.C., which I have yet to get to.
That's fabulous.
COVID interrupted my turn.
Yes.
And I didn't want to do it online because I was just so burnt out. But when I get the opportunity to go in person, I really want to plan a vacation with my family. But if I can't, I'm just going to skip out for a couple days and just try to do it because my schedule allows for that.
It is, our convention is phenomenal. We've had some very phenomenal leaders. Obviously, our first president was Dr. Bethune. Our second president was Dorothy Farabee. She came from the Red Cross. She was head of the Red Cross back in the 30s.
Okay.
We had Vivian Mason. She came from, do you remember CARES? It was like a precursor to Save the Children.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yes, well, she was the vice president there.
Okay.
And then we had the legendary Dorothy I. Height, who we all call her the godmother of the civil rights movement because she worked with Dr. King. If you look at pictures from the March on Washington and see an elegant lady with a very elaborate hat,
I've seen
that is Dr. Height.
I've seen that.
She was phenomenal, and she ran the organization for years. She came from the Deltas. She was the head of the Deltas.
Okay.
And after her passing, we had a couple of other people, and our newest, now we have a brand new president, Dr. Susanna Robertson, I believe is her last name.
I should know, but I don't. I'm
She
sorry.
was only just elected like 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
so
okay.
I've forgotten her name, but she's phenomenal. I heard her speak in a South Carolina conference for NCNW online, and she is phenomenal.
Great speaker.
Great speaker, great energizer. She is pumped up to work for this organization. And the organization is moving forward faster and faster.
Yep.
When
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, when we had Dr. Jonetta Cole, who came from Spelman and from the Smithsonian African American Museum, she really helped move us forward. We're getting a little more politically active for women's issues, for Black issues, for community issues. We've gotten more involved in health initiatives for everybody because you know there's a Black maternal health crisis. I mean, Black women and their children die at 3 times the rate.
I thought it was more than that.
It might be more.
Than
white women do, which is, we're the richest country in the world. Why is anybody dying? Giving birth.
It's mostly, I think, just neglect, I think. So
there's a lot of bias in the medical community.
That's everywhere.
They don't believe, for whatever reason, and I only just learned this, for whatever reason, a lot of medical professionals believe that Black people have a higher pain tolerance and that we don't feel pain the same way that
He
white
never
people
met
do.
me before.
I mean, I
won't
had
even get a tattoo.
you know, it was just amazing to me, but I'm
Wow.
seeing that documented over and over again.
Yeah, that's from way back in the day.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's one of the reasons that we celebrate and honor our founder on Founders Day.
Founders Day.
Which is coming up on April 15th.
Right.
And during that time, you know, we honor so many different folks in
Yes.
so many different categories. The one I do remember is the youth honoree, which I think is just so cute because we get them involved early. So if you want to learn more about our organization, I'm going to start collecting more information from Ellen. I think I'm going to have to join the committee and then I'll get around more so we can give out more information because it's just so important. It's the community. You know,
It is
that's
we
what
are-
it's really all about, our
Absolutely.
community and helping each other and growing in numbers and finding out what family is affected by what problems. And that's how we, are
Right,
able to help everybody.
We do so many activities. I mean, we have run food drives. I can't tell you how many food drives
Yep.
we've run.
Clothes.
Clothing drives.
Soul food for finals for
For college
Kids.
students and high school students.
I love that one.
We've provided supplies to children who were affected by HIV. We gave them Easter baskets and all kinds of supplies. We help our brothers and sisters at the motherland with our Trees of Hope campaign to reforest Africa because they are being deforested. We've done so much work. Each section has so many things that they work on. New Haven, they did a period project to provide
Yes.
feminine hygiene projects to women.
during COVID.
During COVID.
And the way they did that, I had Donnie on the show. She was telling me about it. That was phenomenal. They got a grant, I think, from Yale University or Yale something. Don't quote me on that. But she got a grant, and they were like, how are we going to distribute, these products? So what they did, they found out where the food donations were going to be, and they set up a table there. And, that's how they were able to get awareness about that. And the one thing that shocked me, Dottie said a man ran over to the table to get supplies. He said, I got 3 daughters.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we are always trying to be innovative in ways that help the community. And by having other people join us, we hear what their needs are. And it just, helps us.
It helps. That's why
really does.
with our Founders Day this year, we, as you know, we have 5 award categories. We have an entrepreneur category, a community service category, a section member category, and Youth of the Year.
Youth.
And
That's the other one.
which
Well, if you don't know, I sure don't know.
I
But anyway,
forgot.
we have them.
we
You
have,
to come,
we have
come
five,
to the event.
5 categories. And so our Community Service Award, I think, is really, it's supportive to other organizations because it's to an individual or an organization, women-led or women-run, that, but the community service can go for men and women. That is out there making a difference in the community.
Exactly.
And this year, it's the NAACP in the Valley.
Wow.
Because they are working, trust me. They are working. So
Yes.
it's a great award. Our youth honorees are just fabulous. To see what the young people are doing,
Yeah.
and I know I sound like an old lady, but
No.
I mean, these are high school students. To see what they're doing is just amazing.
And I think Georgia, her daughter's in high school in Bunnell, and they just had an event there not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're involved. We need more people. We just had a membership tea about a month ago, and we recruited 4 or 5 new members.
At least 5.
Never quote me on the numbers, but anyway, 4 or 5 new members that day. So once they heard what we were doing and how we were doing it, they were interested. And it's not like, we understand everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. We all got to work full time, women and men. We all have kids or, they're involved in our lives in one way or another, and just have our days are so full with organizations or whatever. But we're powerful in numbers because you don't have to do everything.
No, you don't.
Each person, somebody may be able to make calls from home, somebody may be able to cook or provide a book. It's just depending on what committee you're in and how you can help.
Absolutely.
And so we urge you to reach out to either one of us if you're interested in. You don't even have to become a member right off. Come to one of our meetings. We have our meetings every third Saturday. At the Madison Avenue Library. Is that correct?
At the moment, yes. At the
moment, that could change.
We used to meet at Messiah, but they're not open up for community groups. So
right
now we're at the library.
So right now we're at the library. It could change. We were on Zoom the third Saturday of the month around, 10 or 12 o'clock? 10 o'clock. And just come and check out one of our meetings and sit in and see what we're about.
And if there are any past debutantes out there, we want to hear from you. Because for 44 years, we ran a debutante cotillion. And a lot of those debutantes are now back here in Connecticut, or they've been back and now their kids would have been the age where we ran the cotillion.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the debutantes want to get back together. So we're trying to put together a debutante reunion. If you were a debutante from National Council of Negro Women, we want to hear from you.
I want to say there is a woman, she's one of my clients in Bridgeport. Her and her husband, I went to school, I want to say his name is Alfred Scott, I want to say Fleming.
Oh,
They did the whole debutante right up until right before COVID. I want to say a few years before COVID. I got to reach out to them and get in touch with them and connect them with you because I don't know anything about that. I didn't even know, I have two sons. I'm not even sure if they're dating. I don't know what's going on. I think they just kind of hook up and that's it. There's no old school.
Yeah, the dating isn't like it used to be.
Yeah, no. And if I had to date again, I'd be completely lost. I wouldn't know what to do. My goodness, I'd be lost. So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about today. Is there anything else you want to mention about the NCNW? Because I want to talk about a couple other things like the GIA. I had a guest on last week, and I know you have information about that. GIA is the Greater Hartford Interfaith Action Alliance. So what that committee does, they went to Hartford, and I guess they created a bill to put a cap on rents because rents were skyrocketing.
Rents are still skyrocketing.
30%, and there's no regulation. So the bill, I guess what they asked for was 2.5% to 3%. And I don't have the letter in front of me, but it's something like that, 2.5% to 3% caps on the rent, because what they're trying to do is I think, her name is Beatrice Santiago. She was here last week. She said what they're doing in Hartford around Albany Avenue, which was, I guess, predominantly a poor area. So what they're doing, I guess they built up a few new buildings. And
gentrification.
I was just getting ready to say, that's exactly where I was going with this. They're moving them all out because they're raising the rents, and that's exactly what it's called. And what she thinks is going to happen with these people, at least that's what she said on the show, is that once you move them all out and they can't afford the rent, we're going to have a homeless epidemic, more of a homeless epidemic.
Well, I was going to say, we already have a homeless epidemic.
Yeah, but more of it. If you raise their rent, say you got a single mom with one kid or two kids or whatever, and you raise the rent and she's struggling, maybe working 2 jobs, maybe working a full-time job and going to school, and she's struggling, and they raise the rent $200 a month. That can be detrimental to somebody like that.
That can be enough to cause an eviction.
Yeah. Whether it's a single or a couple, because if you have a couple now, most people in the middle, we're all just living paycheck to paycheck. Most people can't even afford a $500 emergency if it happened today on a Wednesday. They would have to wait until they got paid on Friday or something like that. So something like that could really, really just really hurt so many people. So what we're asking people to do is to contact your legislator, find out, and it's a link. All you got to do is click on it and vote for the bill. The bill number, I don't have it in front of me, but I will look it up and have it by the time we leave. And to stop all of this,
Well,
rent hikes, and excuse me, one other thing I asked Beatrice, I was like, do you think we can get a few landlords on the show along with her to talk about this?
I think that would be a great idea because
there's decent people out there that's a landlord that's not for this, that's not doing this.
yeah, there are a lot of good landlords
Yes.
out there. There are a lot of owner-occupied properties.
Yep.
And those people really were crushed during COVID. They really were. Because, if you live in a two-family house, you own the two-family house, you rent out one part, you live in the other part, that person loses their renter loses their job during COVID. They don't have a way to pay the rent. You don't have a way to pay your bills. So there are a lot of good landlords out there who need assistance.
Yes.
What's happening is, or this is what the trend is, there are a lot of investor corporate landlords who are buying up multiple properties. And those are the people who are taking a building that may be a little run down, may not be in the greatest neighborhood, or building a new property someplace else. They make these luxury apartments or really increase the value of the property. So now they're charging what they call market rent, which for people who work in Stamford and New York, that can be $2,000 a month easily. Easily $2,000 a month for a studio.
Right.
They're getting those people, which means that the people who used to live in those buildings are now out. But because of this trend of mostly corporate landlords, renters really don't have the same ability to bargain with their landlord that they used to. And a lot of these corporate landlords are asking for 2 and 3 months security deposit.
Security? Who could
So
afford that?
you got a first and a last month. Okay, that's 2 months there. You add on a third month as an additional security deposit, plus your monthly rent. That's 4 months worth of rent. So that's where they're looking at some of these caps in terms of annual increases of the rents and trying to control how much people have to pay for security. Because there are people who can make the rent, they can't make the security.
Of course not. Who could come up with 4 months rent? And another angle to this is if you are renting and you're paying that ridiculous rent, $2,000 or whatever it is, you could afford a home for less. But the problem with that is you can't get a loan because your income to ratio is out of whack or whatever.
It's out of whack. You may not have a big credit history yet.
Or you could be in a situation where Beatrice mentioned on the show last week. She has student loans and she took out a Parent Plus loan for her daughter to become a nurse. And her daughter is a nurse at Yale, so it was a great investment. She pays all of her bills on time, but she can't get a mortgage because of that income. Yes.
Right. And that and the lack of availability of what we call starter homes.
Right.
That would be a small house, not one of these big houses, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath, small houses, like the kind that you and I grew up in, that we thought were mansions. They're considered starter houses.
I grew up in a village, sorry.
And those houses are being snapped up. During COVID, those houses ran for $400,000.
They did. And now they've got to be upside down because they're not worth that now. Are they?
No, actually, they're still holding their value.
Right.
But who can afford a $400,000 house?
Mortgage. What's that, like a $3,000 loan or something? Mortgage. So on that note of not being able to get mortgages or loans for a mortgage, I am having Mr. Gary Goodridge next week on this show to talk about exactly that, how to get loans for people that ordinarily would not qualify for them. I cannot wait to hear what he has to say. Because if you could afford a $2,000 rent, you should be able to get
in theory,
a home.
You should be able to afford a home.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of people who can't.
Yeah, exactly. So I cannot wait to hear what he has to say. And then a lot of people just don't know how to clean your credit. Like every 5 years, like if you have an accident, every 5 years, you can get that taken off your record. There's some things that's on your credit history that probably shouldn't even be there, that you may just need a legal service to get it off. It happened to me, So anyway, I'm so passionate about both these subjects. We have about 2 minutes left, and
One last thing.
I'm gonna leave it to you. You have the last 2 minutes.
Okay, so this goes back to the housing issue. There is a way to contact the committees at the legislature regarding all these bills.
Okay.
So you got the housing bill there. We all voted for early voting.
Oof.
And now they're trying to work out the regulations. And so the proposal is 10 days of early voting. Yay! But they need to work it out, and the bill needs to be signed by the governor. So all bills go into a committee,
Okay.
a subcommittee. They talk about the bill, they rewrite the bill, they do whatever. The bill then goes to the legislature to be voted on, and if it's voted on by both houses of the legislature, it then goes to the desk of the governor. He signs it, it becomes law. That's how laws get made. Contact the people in the committee.
Yes.
Early voting is being discussed and voted on right now. If you don't know who's in your committee, all you have to do is Google, who is my legislature, put your address in, it will pop up, and you will then get a link to that individual, send them an email.
And keep sending them an email until
Send-
you get a response.
Mm-hmm.
We are powerful in numbers. Tell your neighbors about it. Tell your family about it. Tell everybody about it. This is our voice.
This is our voice.
You know, and we're talking about our communities where people live. You know, I don't know anything about renting. I rented an apartment once in my life, and that's it, for a year. I've always owned everything because it was cheaper, and I'm cheap. So there you go. Ellen, thank you so much
You're
for coming
welcome.
on. We're out of time. It goes so fast. But please follow us on YouTube if you missed anything. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show, and we're on your side.